Even in the government, there is a gratuity fund. How to calculate the gratuity? Generally, for the retiring employees, gratuity is calculated in the government. So, কিভাবে সেটা করা হয়? Depends on the last basic pay. So if the last basic pay of an employee is 82,000 taka per month, that means that is the highest salary of the government employees. That means a senior secretary gets 82,000 taka per month as basic salary. Of course, there are other allowances, but basic salary does not change as long as he is the senior secretary to the government. He always gets 82,000 taka. And when he goes into retirement, the gratuity is calculated. Two things are calculated. One is calculated as the pension money, and another is calculated as the gratuity money. So gratuity money is given at a time, and the pension money is given on monthly basis every month. So let us suppose a senior secretary goes into retirement. So he has got 82,000 taka, and you have to calculate 90% of this 82,000 taka. So 90% of this 82,000, how much does it come? It is 73,800, I think. 90% of 82,000. So 73,800. You have to divide it into 2. That means 73,800 to be divided by 2, which is 36,900. So this 36,900 per month would be the pension money he will be getting. 36,900. With this, medical allowance will be added to, and after every 1 year, 5% inflation will be calculated. That means increment. So it will go on like that. And the rest, 36,900, that is from 73,800, as we have divided it into 2. So one part is 36,900, another part is 36,900. So 36,900 would be paid as pension money, and another 36,900 would be multiplied by 230. So if 230 is taken into account against 1 taka, a handsome amount of money is there. If you calculate it, I think the amount would be
স্যার ক্যালকুলেশনটা স্যার আবার একটু বলবেন স্যার, স্যার বুঝতে পারিনি।
amount would be 84,87,000, isn't it? So that amount would be called the gratuity amount, and it has to be given to the employee at a time.
স্যার ক্যালকুলেশনটা স্যার আবার একটু বলবেন স্যার।
Yes, sure. The last basic pay, we have estimated taka 82,000 per month. 82,000 taka per month, which is the highest pay of the government employee. Highest pay means the salary of a senior secretary. 82,000 taka as basic pay per month. So at the retiring time, he is also getting this 82,000 taka per month. So that is the last pay. And now we are calculating 90% of this amount. That means 90% of 82,000. If you multiply 82,000 by 0.9,
the 90% gratuity.
See the figure, it comes to taka 73,800. That is the figure. That means 90% of the last basic pay, 73,800.
The 90% it keep
90% of 82,000, which is
73,800
which is 73,800, as I told you before. And now you divide into two parts. Means 73,800 is to be divided into two parts. That means you divide it by 2, which is 36,900. So this 36,900, it should be the pension money. Every month, the employee will be getting it. And another 36,900, because you divided 73,800. So another 36,900 that you multiply by 230. That means government is paying you taka 230 for 1 taka of your basic pay. So if you multiply 36,900 by 230, then the figure would be a very good amount, which is 84,87,000, as I told you before. So you multiply 36,900 by 230, and then you will get 84,87,000, and that is the figure of your gratuity money. You will get it at a time. Now you can invest it in any savings instrument or FDR or whatever you like. So that is up to you. That is option you are having all the time. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So pension money, what you are getting per month, you will be getting it for the whole year. And whenever you are submitting the return, this pension money is exempted from tax. That means no tax will be imposed on the pension money. But on the gratuity money, this is also exempted, but up to a certain amount of gratuity. That means if you receive up to 2 crore 50 lakhs, then it will be exempted. But if you receive more than that, more than 2 crores 50 lakhs, then it will not be exempted. That will be treated as income. Okay. And when you are investing your gratuity money in the pension Sanchoy Patra, you can invest up to taka 50 lakhs, not more than that. And if you just hand it over to your wife, you can buy family Sanchoy Patra for an amount of taka 45 lakhs. And all these are actually interest on all these instruments are not exempted from tax. Only if you invest in the pension Sanchoy Patra up to taka 5 lakhs. If you invest up to taka 5 lakhs and the interest accrued on it, that will be exempted from tax. But if you invest more than that, in that case, your interest from pension Sanchoy Patra will not be exempted from tax. Is it okay? Up to now, okay. So then let us come to the definition: approved superannuation fund. This is a pension fund, you can say, and this means a gratuity fund which has been and continues to be approved by the board in accordance with the provisions of Part C of the first schedule. Part A of the first schedule. So if you go to the first schedule and Part A, then you will see what are the provisions available, and according to the provisions you can prepare or form this fund in a company. And the condition is that you have to get it approved by the National Board of Revenue, unless it is already approved by the government. So if it is not approved by the National Board of Revenue, then investment in that fund or income from that fund will not be exempted from tax. Then let us see the definition of an SSC. What is an SSC? Generally, what we understand as common people, SSC means taxpayer. We do not call SSC, but we call people who are paying taxes to the government taxpayers. So whenever you are going deep into the details of the income tax, if you practice income tax, or if you are working in an organization, or you become a lawyer or an advocate or a chartered accountant or an ITP, income tax practitioner, then you have to know what an SSC is. So an SSC is a person who pays tax to the government. But here you have to elaborate it. Who will be called the SSCs? If you have submitted a return to the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes showing your income, definitely you are an SSC. If you are supposed to submit a return under Section 75, then you are also an SSC. When a notice has been served on you by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, you are an SSC. Whenever you are supposed to receive a refund from the government, then you are also an SSC. When you are a person at default to the income tax department, you are an SSC. When you have obtained a TIN certificate, then you are also an SSC. Well, these are the conditions actually to become an SSC. And another condition is that when you want to become an SSC, you are an SSC. So as I told you before, that when you have submitted the return under Section 75, or when you are supposed to submit the return under Section 75, then you are an SSC. যখন 75 ধারায় আমি রিটার্ন দেওয়ার জন্য উপযুক্ত, অথবা আমার প্রয়োজন হবে 75 ধারায় রিটার্ন দেয়া, তখন কিন্তু আমি এসএসসি। তাহলে সেই 75 ধারাটি কি? What is Section 75? Any idea about it?
No, sir.
No? Okay, when you are supposed to submit the return under Section 75, it means that you are required to submit the return. That means you have got taxable income. If you have taxable income, then you are supposed to submit the return under Section 75. That is, on a spontaneous basis, you have to submit the return. So you know that there are some non-taxable limits That means which we call general exemption limit.
এসএসসিটা স্যার আরেকবার কি বলবেন স্যার? এসএসসিটা তো বুঝতে পারি।
General exemption limit. Some people will ask you what a general exemption limit is. Say for
স্যার
example,
এসএসসিটা স্যার বুঝতে পারিনি স্যার।
hmm,
স্যার
tell me.
এসএসসিটা স্যার বুঝতে পারিনি স্যার।
General exemption limit means the amount which is not taxable. That means if you go to the last year's taxable incomes, tax rates, etc., you will see that up to taka 3 lakh, you are not supposed to pay taxes on that. That means 3 লক্ষ টাকা পর্যন্ত কোনো ট্যাক্স দিতে হচ্ছে না। তো 3 লক্ষ টাকা পর্যন্ত যদি কোনো ট্যাক্স দিতে না হয়, in that case এই 3 লক্ষ টাকাকে আমরা বলবো general exemption limit. So some people may ask you, or even there might be a question in the examination to ask you about the general exemption limit. So up to that amount, you are not supposed to pay taxes. But when you cross that limit, if you cross that limit of taka 3 lakhs, then you have to submit a return and you are liable to pay taxes. So when you cross that limit and when you know that your income is above taka 3 lakhs, then you have to submit the return. When to submit the return? You have to submit the return in the assessment year, and the assessment year within a certain time. Within a certain time means the assessment year starts from the 1st day of July, and 30th day of November is the tax day. You know that 30th day of November is the tax day. That means on or before 30th day of November, you have to submit the return without having any obligation. That means if you submit the return from the 1st day of July and up to 30th November, then you will not be asked any question with regard to non-submission of the return. And you can submit the return under self-assessment scheme. So self-assessment scheme means you can calculate your own income and you can calculate your own tax, and then you can submit the return. And wherever you submit the return, you will be given a receipt, and that is the assessment, or that is the proof that you have submitted the return and your assessment has been accepted. So this is the submission of the return under section 75. Now, if you submit the return within or by the 30th day of November, it is fine, there is no question. But if you cannot submit the return by 30th November, but you need some time, you can ask for the time from the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes. And the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes can give you some time, extended time. He can give himself, or if he does not have the power, that means if you ask for 3 months time, he cannot give you the extended date, extended time, because he can allow you 2 months time to submit the return. But when you need 3 months time, he needs to seek the approval of the Joint Commissioner of Taxes, who is his supervising authority. So they can seek approval of the Joint Commissioner of Taxes and give you extended time. That means 3 months. That is also possible. But one thing is that you can submit the return under self-assessment scheme, but you have to pay some delay charges. The percentage of the tax has to be paid as delay charges. So that is the penalty for delayed submission of the return. And in that case, you can, of course, submit the return, but you do not have any other penalty except the delay charges. Okay, now, if 30th November is gone and you have not applied for extended time, then you are an SSC in default. In that case, a notice will be served upon you under section 77, asking you to submit the return. So what you see here, you haven't submitted the return under section 75, for which there was no notice at all. 75 ধারায় রিটার্ন সাবমিট করার জন্য কোনো নোটিশের প্রয়োজন হয় না এবং ডিসিটি কোনো নোটিশ ইস্যু করবে না। It's very general. But যদি 30th নভেম্বরের মধ্যে রিটার্ন সাবমিট করা না হয় এবং কোনো এক্সটেন্ডেড টাইম যদি না নেওয়া হয়, in that case the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes will issue a notice to the SSC or the taxpayer to submit the return under section 77, অর্থাৎ 77 ধারায় তখন একটা নোটিশ ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস ইস্যু করবে to the SSC for submission of his or her return. So যখন 77 ধারায় নোটিশ ইস্যু করবে, he will give a time by which you have to submit the return. When you submit the return, according to or following the notice issued to you under section 77, then your return may not be accepted by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes as it is. That means যেভাবে রিটার্নটা সাবমিট করা হয়েছে সেইভাবে উনি সেটাকে হয়তো গ্রহণ নাও করতে পারেন। তার মানে হচ্ছে যে তিনি তখন হিয়ারিং এর জন্য ডাকতে পারেন, অর্থাৎ you will be asked for appearing before him with documents, papers, etc. in order to explain the source of your income. You may be asked to submit accounts in support of your income shown in the return. Books of accounts চাওয়া যেতে পারে, অন্যান্য documents, bank statement বা অন্যান্য document, sale voucher, purchase voucher, inventory book, etc. Everything could be asked for by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes. In that case, you have to produce everything before the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes in support of your income shown in the return. In that case, you have to appear before him or you have to send your representative before him. The representative might be your tax lawyers, that is income tax lawyer, any advocate, any chartered accountant, any cost accountant, or any person working in your organization who are performing any function relating to the management. So যে কাউকে ওখানে প্রেরণ করা যেতে পারে on your behalf or to represent you before the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes along with all the documents relevant to your assessment. So সেই ক্ষেত্রে অ্যাসেসমেন্ট হবে এবং সেখানে নোটিশের মাধ্যমে চাওয়া হবে সবকিছু ডকুমেন্টস এবং হিয়ারিং এর পরে assessment order issue করা হবে. So that is the process how we have to proceed. এখন এখানে যেটা হতে পারে যে যদি এই নোটিশটা ইস্যু করা হয়, অর্থাৎ 77 ধারায় যদি নোটিশ ইস্যু করা হয়, মানে ডেপুটি কমিশনার যদি ইস্যু করেন, তাহলে সেটার সময়সীমা কবে, অর্থাৎ কতদিন নাগাদ তিনি 77 ধারায় এই নোটিশ ইস্যু করতে পারেন। কারণ আমরা আগে বলেছি যে যদি 75 ধারায় রিটার্ন সাবমিট করা হয় তাহলে কোনো নোটিশ লাগে না বা নোটিশ করবেও না, আমরা স্বতঃস্ফূর্তভাবে আমাদের রিটার্নটা আমরা সাবমিট করে দেব। কিন্তু যদি 77 ধারায় নোটিশ ইস্যু করা হয়, ইন দ্যাট কেস আমরা কিন্তু হিয়ারিং ব্যতীত আমাদের অ্যাসেসমেন্টটা করতে পারবো না, করাতে পারবো না। সো এই জন্য 77 ধারায় যে নোটিশটি ইস্যু করা হলো, এই নোটিশের কার্যকারিতা সেটা কতদিনের বা কতদিন নাগাদ বিসিটি এই নোটিশ ইস্যু করতে পারেন। 77 ধারায় তিনি কতদিন পর্যন্ত নোটিশ ইস্যু করতে পারবেন? That might be a question. The question or the scenario is this: the SSC, Mr. X, did not submit his return by 30th day of November, that is the tax day, and hence a notice has been আনবো একটু পরে আনি, তাহলে তো ঠান্ডা হয়ে যাবে। So under section 77, the notice is being issued by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, part. And this notice could be served by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes during the assessment year, not after assessment year. What is the assessment year? Assessment year is running now. The current assessment year has started from the 1st day of July, and it's now continuing, and it will end on the 30th day of June next year. So 21-22 এটা হচ্ছে অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার। 21-এর 1 জুলাই থেকে এটা শুরু হয়েছে এবং 22-এর 30th জুনে এটা শেষ হয়ে যাবে। সো যিনি 75 ধারায় রিটার্ন সাবমিট করেন নাই, তাকে ডেপুটি কমিশনার নোটিশ ইস্যু করবেন এবং সেটা 77 ধারায় নোটিশ ইস্যু করা হবে এবং সেই 77 ধারায় নোটিশ ইস্যু করার সময়সীমা হচ্ছে 30শে জুন 2022। এরপরে তিনি অর্থাৎ ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস 77 ধারায় আর কোনো নোটিশ ইস্যু করতে পারবেন না। তাহলে কি হবে? যদি আপনি 75 ধারায় রিটার্ন না দিয়ে থাকেন, or even if you haven't submitted your return under section 77, then what would happen to you, or what would happen to the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes? What shall he do? তাহলে ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস কি করবেন? অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার 2021-2022 চলে গেল, রিটার্ন সাবমিট করা হয়নি। সুতরাং ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস, what could be done by him? Any idea?
স্যার কি চলে গেছে নাকি?
Yes, tell me.
না স্যার, শুনতে পাচ্ছিলাম না, ভাবছি আপনি ব্রেক দিছেন কিনা, এই জন্যই। স্যার প্লিজ কন্টিনিউ।
বলেছি যে 75 ধারায় কেউ যদি নোটিশ না দিয়ে থাকে, যদি রিটার্ন না দিয়ে থাকে, তাহলে কথা হচ্ছে যে ট্যাক্স ডে এর পরে অথবা এক্সটেন্ডেড টাইমের পরে ডেপুটি কমিশনার 77 ধারায় নোটিশ ইস্যু করবে। 77 ধারার সময়সীমা কবে নাগাদ আছে, অর্থাৎ কবে করতে পারবে আপ টু 30th জুন 2022। 30শে জুনের মধ্যে যদি নোটিশ ইস্যু করা হয়, সেটা ডেপুটি কমিশনার করতে পারবে, বাট 30শে জুনের পরে আর করতে পারবে না। যদি না করতে পারে, তাহলে যে এসএসসি রিটার্ন সাবমিট করেন নাই, অর্থাৎ আন্ডার সেকশন 75ও করেন নাই, আন্ডার সেকশন 77ও করেন নাই, তাহলে তার ক্ষেত্রে কি হবে? সেক্ষেত্রে কোন ধরনের নোটিশ ইস্যু করা হবে? ডেপুটি কমিশনার
তার ক্ষেত্রে স্যার সুদ সহ স্যার জরিমানা সহ দিতে হবে।
সুদ জরিমানা সেটা অবশ্য পরের বিষয়। মূল প্রশ্ন হলো যে তাহলে ডেপুটি কমিশনার বা উপকর কমিশনার তিনি কোন ধারায় নোটিশ করবেন? নোটিশ তো তাকে করতে হবে, আদারওয়াইজ কিভাবে তিনি রিটার্ন সাবমিটে বাধ্য করবেন? He has to issue a notice to the SSC asking him to submit the return for the assessment year 21-22 এবং সেটা কোন নোটিশ হবে? পেনাল্টি ভিন্ন কথা, সেটা আলাদা, বাট রিটার্ন তো চাইতে হবে। সে কিভাবে চাবে, কোন ধারায় চাবে?
Section 8
অর্থাৎ আগামী বছর 2022 সনের 30শে জুন অতিক্রান্ত হওয়ার পরে যদি কেউ রিটার্ন না দিয়ে থাকে এই বছরের জন্য, তাহলে তাকে একটা নোটিশ করতে হবে বাই দি ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস। এবং সেই নোটিশ তিনি কেমনে করবেন? তিনি কিন্তু 77 ধারায় আর করতে পারবেন না, যেহেতু অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ারের সর্বশেষ সময়সীমা অতিক্রান্ত হয়েছে। সুতরাং তাকে যে নোটিশ করতে হবে সেটা করতে হবে আন্ডার সেকশন 93, অর্থাৎ 93 ধারায় তাকে নোটিশ করতে হবে। 93 ধারায় তিনি নোটিশ করে বলতে পারবেন যে you have to submit the return for the assessment year 21-22 by this and this date. উনি সেটা বলতে পারবেন। তখন এসএসসি 93 ধারার আওতায় নোটিশ রিটার্ন সাবমিট করবেন এবং ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস অ্যাকর্ডিংলি হিয়ারিং নিয়ে ওনার বুকস অফ অ্যাকাউন্টস, অন্যান্য ডকুমেন্টস, যা যা ইনকাম রিলেটেড সেগুলো চেয়ে পরীক্ষা নিরীক্ষা করে ওনার বক্তব্য শুনে তারপর তিনি অ্যাসেসমেন্ট অর্ডার অথবা কর নির্ধারণী আদেশ তিনি জারি করতে পারবেন। এটা হলো 93 ধারার নোটিশ করতে হবে। So you have to know all this because নোটিশ কি আসবে, কিসের পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে এই নোটিশ আসলো, কেন আসলো, maybe SSC would not be knowing. SSC would come to you for your suggestion, for consulting you with regard to that. Tahle you have to tell them that this is the notice which has been issued by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, as you have not submitted the return under section 77 or section 75. So you have to now submit the return. So এগুলো আপনাদেরকে বলতে হবে, because you are the people who would be consulted by the SSCs or who would be consulted by the companies where you will be working. Okay. If somebody finds that the return submitted by him is not correct or he has made a mistake in showing the income, then what shall he do? Understandable what I have said to you?
স্যার আজান দিচ্ছে, আমরা মনে হচ্ছে মাগরিবের একটা ব্রেক নিতে পারি।
Break.
জি স্যার মার্ক দেওয়ার জন্য
Okay. For how many minutes?
স্যার 15 মিনিট ইজ এনাফ ফর দিস
15 minutes.
জি স্যার
Okay. Let us have a break for 15 minutes and then come back. Okay, let us resume. What we were discussing is that if you submit a return under section 75 or 77 or 93, whatever it is, and if you find a mistake in the return, that you have committed a mistake while calculating the income or calculating some expenditures, etc. So what should you do then? অর্থাৎ রিটার্ন সাবমিশনের সময় আমরা যদি রিটার্নে কোনো ভুল করে থাকি এবং সেটা যদি আমাদের দৃষ্টিতে পরবর্তীতে ধরা পড়ে, তাহলে আমরা সেখানে কি করতে পারি, দ্যাটস দ্য থিং। এবং সেটা আমরা কোন সেকশনে করব? Any idea about that? আমরা একটা কারেক্টেড রিটার্ন দিতে পারি এবং সেই কারেক্টেড রিটার্নটা আমরা দেব আন্ডার সেকশন 78, showing the amended income or the corrected income. So সেটা আমাদের যদি দিতে হয়, in that case ওটাকে ডিসিটি অ্যাকসেপ্ট করবে এবং অ্যাকসেপ্ট করলে তখন আমরা সেটার সপক্ষে আমাদের ডকুমেন্টস গুলো সাবমিট করব। বুকস অফ অ্যাকাউন্টস হতে পারে, ব্যাংক স্টেটমেন্ট হতে পারে, আদার daily books, they register, ledger, anything. So that should be in support of that. So these are the things. এবং আমরা যেটা শুরু করেছিলাম সেটা হলো যে এসএসসি, আমরা যে বলছি এসএসসি হচ্ছে ট্যাক্স পেয়ার এবং কোন কোন ক্ষেত্রে কাকে আমরা এসএসসি বলবো সেটাও আমরা এক্সপ্লেইন করেছি। এবং এখন আমরা যাব অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার। What is an assessment year? Assessment year means the period starting from the first day of July and for a period of 12 months ending on 30th June. তার মানে যে 12 months যে বছরে আমরা ইনকাম করেছি তার পরবর্তী যে বছর অর্থাৎ 12 মাস সময় সেটাকে আমরা অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার বলি। বর্তমান যে অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার চলছে এটা হচ্ছে 21-22-এর যে 12 মান্থ পিরিয়ড, এটাকে আমরা অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার বলছি। এবং সেখানে আমরা যে ইনকাম শো করব রিটার্ন that return has to be submitted within this assessment year, and the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes would make the assessment. So this is the income year and assessment year. Relationship between the two is like that. And the assessment year starts following the income year. অর্থাৎ যখন ইনকাম ইয়ার শেষ হবে তখন অ্যাসেসমেন্ট ইয়ার শুরু হবে। এবং উভয়ের ক্ষেত্রেই 12 মাস পিরিয়ডটা ধরা হয় নরমালি, এবং সেই 12 মাস পিরিয়ডেই আমরা ইনকাম শো করি এবং অ্যাসেসমেন্টটাও সেই 12 মাস পিরিয়ডের জন্যই হয়ে থাকে। And then come to the definition, Assistant Commissioner of Taxes. Assistant Commissioner of Taxes হচ্ছেন একজন অফিসার যিনি নাকি প্রথম শ্রেণীর কর্মকর্তা এবং তার যে পদ সেই পদটা হচ্ছে আমরা বলি যে entrant. He is the entrant to the taxes department as a class 1 officer. এটা প্রাথমিক পদ এবং এই প্রাথমিক পদটা কিভাবে রিক্রুটমেন্ট করা হয় এই পদে সেটা হচ্ছে যে পিএসসি বা পাবলিক সার্ভিস কমিশন সেই পদে রিক্রুট করে থাকে if they receive a requisition from the National Board of Revenue. এবং এই পদটা আমরা অন্যান্য কিছু নামে অভিহিত করি, সেই নামটা হচ্ছে যে অ্যাসেসিং অফিসার। আমরা বলি যে অ্যাসেসিং অফিসার। তো if we say assessing officer, then it also means Deputy Commissioner of Taxes or Assistant Commissioner of Taxes or an extra Assistant Commissioner of Taxes. So whenever we say Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, he is a person who is supposed to assess the income of the people. So he is also an assessing officer. An Assistant Commissioner, he is also an assessing officer, but this is the primary post in the taxes department as class 1 officer. And another position is there who is also known as assessing officer, and his position is called extra assistant commissioner of taxes. He is a class 2 officer, not a class 1 officer. So the three kinds of officers, that means the deputy commissioner, the assistant commissioner, and the extra assistant commissioner. So all these three types of officers are called assessing officers. They make assessments of the taxpayers. So here, an assistant commissioner of taxes, as per definition, is a person to be appointed as assistant commissioner of taxes under section 3 of the income tax ordinance. Income tax ordinance section 3 অনুযায়ী যে কোনো ব্যক্তি যিনি নাকি অ্যাসেসমেন্ট অফিসার হিসাবে or অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট কমিশনার হিসাবে যিনি নিয়োগপ্রাপ্ত হয়েছেন বা অ্যাপয়েন্টমেন্ট পেয়েছেন তাকেই আমরা অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস বলি। এবং আরেকটা ডেফিনেশন আমরা যখন পড়ব অর্থাৎ ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস, তখন সেখানে আমরা দেখব যে ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস ইজ এ পারসন অ্যাপয়েন্টেড টু বি ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস and includes deputy commissioner of taxes, an assistant commissioner of taxes, and an extra assistant commissioner of taxes. That means deputy commissioner of taxes bolte আমরা deputy commissioner of taxes কে বুঝাই, আমরা assistant commissioner of taxes কে বুঝাই, এবং আমরা extra assistant commissioner of taxes কে বুঝাই। এবং সেখানে আরেকটা পজিশন আছে, এটাকে বলে ট্যাক্স রিকভারি অফিসার। This tax recovery officer does not make any assessment, but he is responsible for realizing taxes. He is also in the same category. So এখানে আমাদের মনে রাখতে হবে যে ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস includes deputy commissioner of taxes, assistant commissioner of taxes, and extra assistant commissioner of taxes. এটা খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয়, এটা আমাদেরকে মনে রাখতে হবে। এই জন্য যখন একজন এক্সট্রা অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস একটা অ্যাসেসমেন্ট করে থাকেন, অর্থাৎ মেক্স অ্যান অ্যাসেসমেন্ট অর্ডার এন্ড হি রাইটস দ্যাট মিস্টার অমুক অর সো এন্ড সো, নিচে বলা থাকে যে ডেপুটি কমিশনার অফ ট্যাক্সেস। So if he writes deputy commissioner of taxes, it is also correct. It is not incorrect, because even he is an extra assistant commissioner of taxes, but he can also be treated as deputy commissioner of taxes. So that's the thing you have to remember. And you see Bangladeshi company, you have to first know the company. What is a company? So company is a form of organization, business organization, of course, and ওটা কিভাবে ফরমেশন হয়? Under the law or under the act, Companies Act 1913 or Companies Act 1994, এবং পরবর্তীতে যে অ্যামেন্ডমেন্টটা হয়েছে 2020-এ, সেটাও সেখানে ধরা হয় কিছু অ্যামেন্ডমেন্ট। সো সেই লতে বলা আছে যে কিভাবে কোম্পানি ফরমেশন করতে হবে। There is a procedure of forming a company, এবং সেখানে মিনিমাম কতজন শেয়ার হোল্ডার থাকতে হয়। Primary purpose is to make profit or do business. It might be in the form of goods or it might be in the form of services, whatever it is, but at least there would be two people for making or forming a private limited company. But for public limited companies, there should be at least 7 shareholders, and the maximum number of shareholders is not confined, but it is confined to the number of shares. And in case of private companies, the maximum number of shareholders should be 50, and minimum number I have told you, that is 2. So this is the range of the shareholders number, and the public limited companies have got some advantages over private limited companies, because by private limited companies cannot issue shares, to the shareholders, but especially for the public, they cannot issue shares to the public, and the public limited companies, they are authorized to issue shares to the public, and if they are listed with the stock exchange. So if you can issue shares to the public, it means that you can raise money as your capital. So you know the capital of the companies: authorized capital, subscribed capital, issued capital, paid up capital, etc. So the companies can realize, capital from the public, and public companies have got some advantages with regard to borrowing monies from the banks and financial institutions, because the size of the capital would be much higher, much bigger. So that's why they have got access to many finances, and they can do businesses in a bigger scale or larger scale. And we can also understand that economies of scale would be there, because they can get the advantages of economies of scale. So these are very important issues to remember. And in the companies, especially in the public limited companies, or the companies have got some clauses which are very important. Generally 5 clauses are there. The number 1 clause is the name clause. Number 2 clause is the objective clause. Number 3, capital clause. Then situation clause. Then liability clause. So there are 5 clauses, and the name clause is also important, because there should not be any duplication of names. So whenever you submit for name clearance to the Register of Joint Companies and Firms, he can clear the name of the company. He can approve it or he can disapprove it. If there is any other company existing in the same name, then he will disapprove of it. So you have to change the name. Situation clause, objective clause, etc. Objective clause, you should mention about the objectives of the company, what type of objectives you have, whether you want to do business in some products or services, whether you want to be engaged in trade business, that means trading or manufacturing or whatever it is, and the number of businesses you have to get yourself involved. Maybe you are engaged in transport business, you are also engaged in manufacturing business, etc., etc. So that have to be mentioned in the objective clause. And then situation clause, it means that the company should be located or situated somewhere in Bangladesh or in other countries, etc., whatever it is. And then the capital clause and liability clause, how to raise the capital, that should be the provision in the capital clause. What should be the authorized capital, what should be the issued capital, what should be the build up capital, what should be the subscribed capital, what should be the paid up capital, something like that. And then you have to go for liability clause. What should be the liability? That means each and every shareholder has got particular liabilities. That means his liability is actually limited to the number of shares he is holding. That means the value of the shares would be treated as a liability of the company. That means towards the banks, financial institutions, or other creditors, etc. And you have to be held liable up to that amount, not beyond that amount. So it is called a limited liability company. So the liabilities of the shareholders will be limited. Nowadays, you will see that one-man company is also there. That means only one person can form a company, and that is also possible because in many countries we see there are one-man company. So here it is said that Bangladeshi company, it means that when the company is formed and registered under the Companies Act 1913 or under Companies Act 1994 and includes a body corporate established or constituted by or under any law for the time being in force in Bangladesh, having in either case its registered office in Bangladesh. Most importantly, we have to consider that when the registered office of the company is in Bangladesh and it is formed under the Companies Act 1913 or 1994, then it would be treated as a Bangladeshi company. That is important. Then banking company. What is a banking company? Because banking company is also a type of company which is formed under the Banking Companies Act 1991 and includes a body corporate established or constituted by or under any law for the time being in force, which transacts the business of banking in Bangladesh. The banking companies will only transact business in the banking field. So its business is to receive deposits and to lend money to the people. In between, there are some functions, of course. So they also transfer funds from one country to another country, receives funds on behalf of the companies or shareholders or clients, etc., whatever it is. And board, you will see the definition of board. Whenever somebody says board, you will understand that this is the National Board of Revenue. When they say about the board, it means it is the National Board of Revenue. And the National Board of Revenue was constituted under the Presidential Order number 76 of 1972. So board is very important for you to understand because board actually formulates the policies, and the board is actually chaired by the chairman of the National Board of Revenue. The chairman of the National Board of Revenue is the Internal Resources Division's secretary. He is the secretary of the Internal Resources Division, and by virtue of his position, he is the ex officio chairman of the National Board of Revenue. Then come to the point business. What you understand by business? It means trade, commerce, manufacture, adventure, etc., connected with his business or profession. So it is definitely connected with business or profession, but business sometimes income of the business sometimes goes to the service of the people or goes to a fund where the fund is utilized for the welfare of the people. That is also possible, but still then they have to earn the money. So if they want to earn the money, they have to do some activities, and those activities should be related to business, and there should be profit. Otherwise, the fund cannot be, financed. Just one moment. Okay, so we were discussing business. Of course, you understand what a business is. It could be anything: trade, manufacture, commerce, adventure, or wherever the nature of trade you will see. Then you come to the point capital asset. What is a capital asset? Capital asset could be an asset that could be property or any kind of asset held by an associate, whether or not connected with business or profession, but does not include. So capital asset could be any type of asset. Generally, it is a fixed type of asset, or sometimes we say movable assets. And then it does not include some assets. Does not include means if there is a stock in trade, that means stock in trade in the form of final goods or in the form of raw materials or in the form of work in progress. Any type of raw materials, work in progress, or final goods in the form of, stock in trade. That means which are held for selling, and sometimes which are held for manufacturing the final product. So if there is a raw material, of course, the raw material would be utilized in manufacturing the final product. In that case, this will not be treated as capital asset, but it cannot. That means a capital asset cannot include stock in trade, whatever it is. And then personal effects. Personal effects could not be included in the capital asset. What do you mean by personal effects? Personal effects means those assets which are not actually used in the business or profession. So, for example, you have got a car, but that car is not used in your profession or in your business. So it is just for personal purposes. So this type of assets would be treated as not capital asset, as personal effects. So your jewelry, your precious stones, motorbikes, all these would be treated as personal effects, not capital assets. So you have to remember all this. Capital asset does not include the, personal effects that have to be excluded. That has to be kept in mind all the time. Why capital asset is necessary to identify? Because of the fact that we are going to calculate the capital gains. So capital gains calculation needs capital assets, because if there is no capital asset, there is no capital gain. So that's why capital assets are to be identified, and from the capital assets, we will be calculating the capital gains. Then you come to the point chartered accountant. You are going to be a chartered accountant. Chartered accountant, it is according to the Chartered Accountants Order number 2 of 1973. So everything is said there. Who would be treated as a chartered accountant? There are some associates of chartered accountants and there are some fellows of chartered accountants. That means a fellow chartered accountant or an associate chartered accountant, depends on the longevity or the tenure of the service you are providing or the period you have actually passed as a chartered accountant. So those are the criteria you have to fulfill in order to become an FCA from an SCA. After a certain period of time of practice or service, you can become a fellow chartered accountant. Otherwise, you are an associate chartered accountant. And you have got some authorities and powers to do audit works. So statutory audit works you can do, but others cannot do statutory audit works. So for example, SCMA, Associate of Chartered and Management Accountants, they are not authorized to conduct audit, but you are authorized to conduct audit. So there is a difference between the two. And in order to become a chartered accountant, you have to go through a rigorous process of activities. That means you have to pass the examination of 17 subjects. in 3 levels. First level is certificate level, second level is there as the professional level, then advanced level. So 17 papers you have to pass, and that makes you a chartered accountant. And in the meantime, you have to undergo an internship training in a firm. That means you have to be associated with a chartered accountant firm in order to know about the practical, accounting profession, practical auditing solution, problems and solutions. So you have to conduct an audit as per advice of the chartered accountant firm. That means your principal, and they will give you some guidelines. And you will see there are QAD department of the ICAB, and QAD department is Quality Assurance Department, and there is also one board, Quality Assurance Board. So you have to conduct your audit according to the guidance given by the Quality Assurance Board or the Quality Assurance Department. So in that way, you have to proceed. Okay, then you come to the definition commissioner. Commissioner, if you say commissioner, then you people will be able to understand what a commissioner is. The person appointed to be a commissioner of taxes under section 3 of the Income Tax Ordinance 1984. It means that he is the head of a zone. That means a zone responsible for collecting revenue. So a zone over some areas. So if you see that a zone is there in Dhaka, it means that it covers some areas. So with those areas, the zone will be conducting its assessment, conducting surveys, etc., in order to increase the number of SSCs or taxpayers, something like that. And commissioner appeals, when I say commissioner appeals, it also means that he is the head of a zone which is responsible for hearing the appeals. That means this person, as a commissioner of taxes appeals, is not responsible for realizing taxes. Rather, he is responsible for hearing the appeals preferred by the taxpayers. So that is also necessary for the benefit of the employees. Whenever the assessors are aggrieved with the orders given by the Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, they can go to the Commissioner of Taxes Appeals. Okay. Then the definition of company. Company means a company defined in the Companies Act 1913 or 1994, whatever it is. Also includes a body corporate established or constituted by or under any law for the time being in force, nationalized banking or financial institution, insurance body, and industrial or business enterprise. All those are categorized as companies. And an association or combination of persons called by whatever name, if any, if any of such persons is a company as defined in the Companies Act 1930, it means that when you find an association of persons can also include a company. An individual could be there, and 2, 3 individuals could be there, but a company could also be there. So when there is a company in the association of persons, it will be treated as a company, not as an association of persons. But you see that in the definition of person, you will see an association of persons. An individual is there, a firm is there, a company is there, a fund is there, a municipal corporation is there. All those are actually persons. But here, if you see within the association of persons, there is a company. In that case, you will treat it as a company for assessment purposes. Any association or body incorporated by or under any law of a country outside Bangladesh. So if there is an association working in Bangladesh, but it has been, incorporated under any law outside of Bangladesh, in that case, it will be treated as a company. Or any foreign association or body not incorporated by or under any law, which the board may, by general or special order, declare to be a company for the purpose of this ordinance. It means that when you see a foreign association working here in Bangladesh, that association could be treated as a company by the National Board of Revenue. So it depends on the decision of the National Board of Revenue to treat it as a company or not. The National Board of Revenue can treat it as a company. And you see the cooperative society. It's a cooperative society registered under Cooperative Societies Act 2001. And this could be under any other law for the time being in force, governing the registration of cooperative societies. So there is an act which is called Cooperative Societies Act 2001. Under that act, the cooperative societies could be registered. Cost and management accountant, as you understand that they are also cost and management accountants from an institute like the ICAB, and that institute is called ICMAB. So they actually go for examinations, sit for examinations for a certain number of papers, and then they pass the examination and then be treated as, cost and management accountant, but they do not have to undergo, internship programs as you do in the firms. Then you come to the point dividend. Dividend means the profit of the company which is distributed among the shareholders, and dividend is distributed after, ascertaining the profit of the company and payment of taxes is made. So whenever you ascertain the profit and pay taxes on that, afterwards the remaining portion of the profit could be paid as dividend, or a certain percentage of it could be paid as the dividend to the shareholders, and it is declared in the annual general meeting of the company how much dividend could be paid, whether this is 10% or 15% of the profit earned by the company. It is to be decided by the members or shareholders in the annual general meeting. And it should always be from the accumulated fund. That means there has to be some funds, retained earning, etc. And out of that fund or retained earnings, the dividend could be paid off to the shareholders. And it could be a dividend being paid now, but it could be out of the accumulated funds before a number of years. That could also be possible. So you can go through the definition of the dividend, and dividend is paid to the shareholders, not to the debenture holders. So that has to be kept in mind. One moment. Achha. So the other definitions which are incorporated in the handout, you can have a look at those, definitions. And if you go through those definitions, I believe that you will be able to understand what is written about those. These are important for proceeding towards the different chapters of the income tax ordinance. As we have mentioned before at the beginning of this session, business, business is related to section 28. When you say profession, related to section 28. When you say capital asset, as we have mentioned about the capital assets, this is relating to section 31 when we are going to calculate capital gains out of the capital assets. Dividend is also related to section 33, income from other source. So all these are actually important. The definition chapter is very important for you in order to know the terminologies of different income tax, definitions. So please have a look, and later on you can have any question if there is any. So in the next class you can ask me questions if you have, or you can send me an email if you have to understand anything. Otherwise, you can also raise the questions in the regular class, and regular teacher will make you understand. The email address could be obtained from Mr. Abdul Halim. He can give you my email address. If there is a question, I can just answer. So if you have any question, please tell me. Otherwise, we can